rewatched Sex and the City Season 6 and let me tell you, it's a ride. This final season has so much going on that I decided to divide it into not 2, not 3, but 4 parts to really dig into the storytelling, character arcs, and of course, the fashion. In this video, I'll start by analyzing episodes 1 to 6, which I like to call the Berger era. Then I'll move on to the 5 transitional episodes, including the iconic A Woman's Right to Choose, followed by the Alexander Petrovsky episodes, and finally, in the last part, I'll break down the 2 American Girl in Paris episodes. So, without further ado, let's dive into the Berger era of SATC and see what made it so memorable and sometimes so frustrating. This is probably the worst episode to open a Sex and the City season. In the words of the infamous Lexi Featherston, whatever happened to fun? Whatever happened to Fleet Week parties, firefighter contests, milestone birthdays, and Yankee games that used to kick off previous seasons? Sadly, those days are gone. Instead, this episode's main theme is the stock market. Literally, Carrie gets the honor of opening Wall Street by ringing the bell, presumably to emphasize her newly acquired celebrity status as a successful published author. Samantha, true to form, has a fling with a stockbroker who is later arrested for insider trading. Charlotte is all about investing. She invests in shares of the New York Star and in her relationship with Harry by considering converting to Judaism for him. And Miranda is in love with Steve. That's it, she has no connection to the theme whatsoever. Have you guys seen those memes where the ladies comment on some sort of a world event and Carrie is always like, Big is moving to Paris? Completely detached from the topic they were discussing. Yeah, that's Miranda in this episode. Wall Street, stockbroker, investing, jokes about someone's stock plummeting or going up. No thanks. She's in love with Steve. But Steve dates somebody else, Debbie, but we don't know her name yet, and his buddy Aiden has a wife and a baby. I do find it funny that in her voiceover, Carrie compares her relationship with Aiden to the Wall Street crush of 1929, as in 2003, when this episode originally aired, she had no idea that another financial crisis was just around the corner. Spooky, huh? Still, it's not the looming financial crisis that makes this episode odd to watch in 2025, but rather its slightly patronizing tone of making finances and investing seem fun and easily digestible. Sadly, it is very of its time. Take Confessions of a Shopaholic, for example, which is a 2009 film starring Isla Fisher as Rebecca Bloomwood. Rebecca is a journalist with a shopping addiction who, ironically, scores a job in a financial magazine. And in her column, which is clearly aimed at women, Rebecca, in a cute but ultimately very condescending way, explains finance through fashion analogies. This Sex and the City episode gives off a similar vibe.
Later that day, I got to thinking about the stock market and dating. Are they really that different?
And speaking of fashion, I really love clothes in this episode. My favorite look is Charlotte in the food market wearing the Ralph Lauren Spring 2003 tweed blazer and the Louis Vuitton collab with Takashi Murakami papillon bag. This cherry blossom print was the true staple of the early 2000s. You could spot it on celebrities like Paris Hilton and in movies like Mean Girls, White Chicks, and of course, in Sex and the City. Oh, what a fantastic episode. A bit heavy on the puns, but enjoyable nonetheless. So, this is the episode where Carrie and Berger are having bad sex. Charlotte takes the first steps toward converting to Judaism. Samantha invites the ladies to the infamous Raw restaurant where she meets Smith Jarrett, aka Jason Lewis, Mr. Gucci by Tom Ford, 1995, and Miranda gets hooked on a fake TV show, Jules&Mimi. So let's start with Carrie and Berger. I love how the camera really lingers on them and shows just how awkward their sex life is. And Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I was always rooting for Berger. To me, he seemed like the perfect partner for Carrie, which is why his later transformation into this insecure, emasculated by his girlfriend's guy feels like such a betrayal. Here's the thing, Carrie in her previous relationships never had anything in common with her boyfriends. With Big, she shared undeniable chemistry. That's true, but no passions or hobbies, which is actually what the writers try to correct in the movies and reboot by showing them watching old black and white films and listening together to Big's vinyl collection. But in the original show, most of their interactions are either very flirty or it's just them fighting about Big's emotional aloofness. He doesn't care about her love for fashion, she doesn't care about his love for jazz. All they do is fight, flirt, and you know what. That's their entire dynamic. Then with Aiden we saw a shift. Carrie made an effort to understand his world. She tried to learn about his profession as a furniture designer and gave his entire lifestyle a shot. But Aiden never reciprocated. There is not a single scene of him attempting to read Carrie's favorite book or flip through Vogue to understand her love for fashion. And so that's what made Berger feel like such a breath of fresh air. Carrie and Berger already have so much in common. They're both writers. She's all about her obscure puns. He's all about his quick-witted replies. And at least in the beginning, Berger treats Carrie like his equal. This relationship had so much potential, which makes it all the more disappointing when Berger's insecurities take over. And by the way, guys, did you notice what Berger is holding in his hands when he calls Carrie? It's a pack of Post-its. Brilliant. Now, before I move on to the rest of the ladies, I have to point out two inaccuracies in this episode. The first one, when Carrie and Samantha are shopping at La Perla for sexy lingerie, Carrie says something truly outrageous.
Starting with,
I don't wear furry shoes.
Excuse me? We all know that isn't true. A pair of fluffy, furry Dolce & Gabbana sandals played a pivotal role in the episode with Amalita Amalfi. And the second inconsistency is more about character development, and it's Charlotte. Why on earth was she so supportive of Berger? After her experiences with Trey, where their marriage was plagued by constant sexual struggles, it makes no sense that she would be hopeful about Carrie and Berger working things out. You'd think her past would make her more cautious or, I don't know, at least skeptical about the relationship struggling with intimacy issues. Her reaction feels completely out of character. But at least she's once again the best dressed in this episode as she rocks yet another Ralph Lauren Spring 2003 piece. This time she wears the floral corset, as these Ralph Lauren corsets were pretty popular at the time. Actually, another can be spotted in 13 Going on 30, which definitely adds up to this collection's hype and its outrageous resale prices. However, the brand recently recreated some of the pieces from this collection, so do what you will with this information. And finally, let's talk about Miranda. I love that Miranda was giving this cute and relatable obsession with trash TV and gossip magazines, and so her newest addiction is a show she watches on TiVo called Jules&Mimi. It's a BBC-like romantic drama about Jules, a guy from Brixton, and Mimi, a landlord from whom Jules rents a flat above her hat shop. Honestly, perfect. I'd watch it in a heartbeat. Can someone please make this show for real? But the fact that this plotline is the setup for Miranda's interracial relationship with Robert is bonkers. Mimi is a redhead, and so is Miranda. Jules is a black guy, and so is Robert. And they both are soon to be living in the same apartment building. Life imitates art, I guess? The perfect present is the episode where Carrie and Big are having phone sex while Big sits in a hot tub with the most hilariously on-the-nose green screen behind him. Honestly, jail. This show had such a huge budget at this point. They shot at Wall Street, for Christ's sake, and yet they really couldn't come up with anything better than this? I'm speechless. Meanwhile, Berger is starting to spiral after his ex-girlfriend Lauren calls him. Charlotte says goodbye to Christmas as she fully commits to her religious conversion, and Samantha, well, something weird is happening with Samantha's character this season that I didn't notice before, and I'm not loving it for our girl. She's been given this slightly out-of-touch tone paired with a lack of self-awareness that feels very un-Samantha. In the first episode, she complained about the gentrification of the meatpacking district as if her living there wasn't a part of the problem. Then she fully wore a fur stole in a vegan restaurant, again like no self-awareness that maybe this is not the time and place for fur accessories. And now in this episode, she offers Smith $300 after getting him fired from his catering job by having sex with him at Jennifer Coolidge's purse party.
Isn't this precious? You can take it to lunch.
Best cameo ever. So funny. But yeah, Samantha doesn't seem to realize how humiliating and transactional this gesture must feel for Smith. But this episode's main theme revolves around change, and that's what we see in Samantha. Previously, she was always annoyed when a guy wanted to meet up with her the next weekend because she was always on a hunt for the next hot guy, or she was forgetting the guys she had already slept with. And now she begins to take her time with Smith, slowly getting to know him instead of rushing off to find the next fling. It's a great evolution of her character, even though the lack of self-awareness earlier in the season feels a bit out of place. I love her Chanel No. 5 earrings though. Moving on to Charlotte. Okay, so I really struggle with analyzing her conversion plotline because I'm originally from Poland, so yeah, I have no clue whether the portrayal of her conversion is realistic, respectful, or completely off the mark. I know nothing. But what I do know is that Charlotte has always been subtly showing her interest in mysticism and deeper spiritual meaning, like in that episode where she became so fascinated with the Hasidic folk artist. And so her decision to convert feels like a natural continuity of that curiosity. Plus, she doesn't like Sharpays. And Harry's a great guy, so I'm happy for her. Lastly, let's talk about Berger. In my season 5 review, I shared my Jack Berger theory that I'm going to quickly remind you of here. Essentially, Sex and the City is filled with Breakfast at Tiffany's references, through dialogue, visuals, and even through music, like in that scene where Carrie and Big were dancing to Moon River. I believe that Lauren, Berger's ex-girlfriend, being a decorator is another nod to Truman Capote's novel, where Emily, Paul's quote-unquote decorator, financially supported him, making him a kept man. This would explain why Jack Berger, a failed writer, an author of one book that didn't sell, has a house in the Hamptons and an apartment with designer furniture. Like, these are Harry Bertoya's diamond chairs. They cost $2,000 each. He has 4. And so my theory is that Lauren was financially supporting Berger, which left him feeling emasculated, ashamed, and inferior. In juxtaposition to Smith, who happens to be totally fine, sharing his life with a strong and independent Samantha, Berger is a traditional guy who believes that he should be the breadwinner, and that's why he and Lauren broke up, because he resented her money. Now, some of you pointed out that this theory doesn't fully hold up because in this episode, Berger reveals that Lauren cheated on him. Fair point. But let's not forget that Berger went out on a date with Carrie while he was still with Lauren, so it could have been some sort of twisted revenge. Or, and this is what I really think, he's lying. I don't think Lauren cheated on him at all. I think he made it up to justify his own guilt and actions. The 4th episode of season 6 revolves around the theme of communication. Carrie reads Berger's novel, Hurricane Pandora, and while she genuinely loves the book, her initial reaction is to criticize his writing, which leads to the infamous scrunchy argument. Samantha and Smith experiment with roleplay only to realize they don't need to pretend to be someone else to enjoy each other's company. Harry breaks up with Charlotte after she blurts out that she's too good for him, that she changed her faith for him, yet he still hasn't proposed to her, even though he was planning to do just that. Oh, it's such a good argument, and hot take, I guess. I'm on Harry's side. Sure, him watching sports on TV while Charlotte tries to celebrate their first traditional dinner together is disrespectful of her and her work, but then what she says is unacceptable. When she's like, "Do you know how we look together?" implying that they're like Beauty and the Beast or something. And when he says, "I know what strangers think about us, but I never thought you see me that way." It's heavy stuff. Like, I love Charlotte, but she's way too harsh in that scene. And I understand why Harry breaks up with her. Would you want to be with someone who thinks you look like Shrek? And Berger teaches Miranda that with men, apparently there are no mixed messages, and sometimes a guy is just not that into you. I did a little digging and found out that the origin story of the "he's just not that into you" line is surprisingly fascinating. Listen to this. During the Sex and the City brainstorming session, Jenny Biggs, one of the show's writers, was venting about a dating problem to the show's straight male script consultant, Greg Behrendt. Jenny explained that after a date, she invited the guy upstairs, but he declined. And so she asked Greg if he thought that was bad, to which he bluntly responded, "He's just not that into you." This brutal honesty struck a chord with the writers, so much so that they brought this conversation into the show. But that's not all. 7 months after the series finale, Greg Behrendt and fellow SATC writer Liz Tuccillo turned the concept into a self-help book titled, you've guessed it, "He's Just Not That Into You." And in 2009, it got turned into a star-studded movie adaptation. One line from a Sex and the City episode resulted in a book and a movie. Insane! I find it odd that Carrie was so blunt with Berger. Her decision to criticize his book straight away, without first starting with the positives and then gently addressing minor details, fits the episode's theme of communication or miscommunication in this example, but it feels very out of character for her. Like, Carrie, too, is a published author. She knows the emotional roller coaster of putting your work out into the world, the highs of a glamorous book release party and the lows of a book tour or being reduced to opening for a dog. She's also so self-obsessed and gets annoyed at her best friends for not reading her column religiously every week and spirals whenever she receives a single bad review. If anyone understands the vulnerability of sharing your art, it's Carrie. Don't get me wrong, I'm not defending Berger, as he takes her criticism and his subsequent resentment of her way too far when he decides to mock Carrie's little hat. But there were so many odd decisions made in this season. It's as if the writers didn't remember anything about the characters they've created. Also, the scrunchy argument really dates the show. If this scene were shot in 2019 during the heyday of Visco girls, scrunchies would have been everywhere. Those girls were wearing like 6 scrunchies on their wrists at once, and you know that Carrie, the fashionista she is, would be rocking them too. In fact, Carrie probably would have had a designer scrunchie, like a limited edition Prada or Miu Miu one, and made it look effortlessly chic. Anyway, what do we think Hurricane Pandora is about? Oh my god, everybody stay calm! This is the Prada episode! If you've been watching my videos for a while or following me on Instagram, you know I'm a proud vintage Prada collector, which makes this episode particularly exciting for me. So, Carrie takes Berger to a Prada store in New York City to shop for a dress. Carrie's dress and Berger's the, I never say fabulous red shirt come from Prada's fall 2003 collection, which was all about contrasts. The contrast between luxe fabrics like exotic leathers and silks and heavy and durable tweeds. The contrast between masculine tailoring and feminine silhouettes. The contrast of looking effortlessly cool and putting on tons of effort into one's appearance. You know, a very Miuccia Prada collection. And in a more metaphorical sense, very Jack Berger and Carrie Bradshaw in this episode. Think about it, they started out as equals with shared hobbies and interests, but as the relationship evolves in this episode, the contrast between them becomes impossible to ignore. Carrie's career is skyrocketing as she gets an advance from France, while Berger gets dropped by his publisher. She's this modern, successful woman who earns more money than her boyfriend, and he's this guy who's struggling with his insecurities about her success. She's ambitious and thriving, while he's drowning in self-doubt. It's the classic Prada's feminine meets masculine aesthetic, but instead of balancing each other out like the fall 2003 collection does, Carrie and Berger's relationship feels one-sided and awkward. She really has to work hard for this relationship to work, and that motorbike scene, I feel exhausted even talking about it. And I'm sorry that I'm this person, but I have to address one more thing about the shopping at Prada scene. I swear I'll be quick. The clothes and accessories in the store are actually from Prada's Spring 2003 collection, so they are from an earlier season. I'm assuming that after years of featuring Prada's outfits on Sex and the City, Patricia Field, the show's costume designer, had a very good relationship with Prada representatives and probably got the fall 2003 dress straight out of the runway before the collection even got manufactured. Personally, I'm in love with the spring collection. It was so bold and unapologetically fun, and it featured these truly iconic leather bags with curved metal handles that you can spot behind Tony from Prada. Chic doesn't even begin to cover it.
Prada and all.
You have a Prada abuse problem.
Okay, but Prada isn't the theme of this episode. Instead, it has to do something with different types of acting. There is a literal take to this theme as Samantha watches Smith act in a play for the first time and she agrees to do PR for him. I love that she fully commits to making him a movie star by wearing this iconic Chanel shooting star sweater. What a queen. I know I haven't been talking much about Samantha in this video, but her big storyline comes later in the season, and right now there isn't that much depth to her character or story. I think it's because of the feud. Then Miranda is so convincing in her acting in front of Steve that she's not in love with him, that he thinks she'll be totally cool with baking birthday cupcakes for his new girlfriend. I'm sorry, in what world? In what world? In love or not, it's so effed up he tricked her to bake those for Debbie. These ladies haven't even met yet. It feels so wrong and exploitative of Miranda's time and their relationship as co-parents. Then Carrie acts like she and Berger are one big happy couple, even though he wears the red Prada shirt for her and she wears... Wait a minute, is it a thick hair tie? Or maybe, just maybe, it's a thin scrunchie? What do we think? And Charlotte? Well, Charlotte is single and she's ready for her next act. Hop, skip, and a week marks the end of the Carrie and Berger saga, and honestly, good riddance, because wow, what a drag that relationship had become. The theme of this episode is all about trials, being put on trial, proving yourself, and sticking it out when things get tough. Carrie is called to jury duty. Miranda is on trial in her own life as she struggles to balance between being a lawyer and a mom. Charlotte is testing the dating waters, only to realize her heart still belongs to Harry, and Samantha proves, yet again, that she's not just fabulous, she's fiercely loyal and determined. Smith, aka the Absolute Hunk, starts doubting his ability to make it in the industry, but Samantha refuses to let him give up. She sees his potential before he even fully believes in himself, and yeah, Samantha is always the ultimate boss, and I love watching her push Smith toward his breakthrough. Meanwhile, Berger continues to prove he's the king of passive aggressiveness. Every fun moment Carrie tries to create, he ruins with his awkward, snarky comments and insecurities. So, this episode shows the massive divide between Carrie and the ladies' stories in this season. Samantha grows and opens up emotionally when she's with Smith. Miranda finds a healthy compromise between her career and motherhood. Charlotte's relationship with Harry makes her let go of her rigid ideas about love and relationships and accept him for who he is. Aww. And just like that, Charlotte finally got a real proposal. But Carrie has to downplay her success because Berger is so insecure. She's stifling and suppressing herself instead of growing. And then she finds the post-it. To be continued. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Maybe ring the bell so you'll get notified whenever I post. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.